Another terrifying incident for flyers involving Boeing. What are experts saying they should do? Coming up on Business Matters. Good afternoon, and thank you very much for joining me here today. I'm Don Ma. We have a great show for you today. U.S. stocks were essentially unchanged at the close of a choppy session today. S&P 500 lost 0.7 points, or nearly 0%, and the NASDAQ Composite gained 7 points, also basically zero. The Dow rose 2 points, or also zero. So let's take a quick look right now at some technical analysis of how markets are doing right now. All right, so the benchmark S&P 500 for the past few months have been trading right along the 20-day moving average. And I said last time that as long as we stay above the yellow line here, this is the 20-day moving average right here. As long as we stay above this line, not too much of worry about a decline. Well, if you look here as of Thursday, right here, we actually went below the 20-day moving average. And then Friday, we went back up. Right now, we're still sitting right above the 20-day moving average. But now it's actually important to start watching if we're actually going to get a confirmed break of the support, which is the yellow line right here. Because if it happens, then finally we could be seeing a bit of downturn for stocks. Now let's talk about the solar eclipse today. So it happened at around 3:30 p.m. Eastern time. Tens of millions of Americans witnessed it. It's a rare occurrence when parts of North America descend into temporary darkness. And here in the US, the path of totality passed diagonally from Texas to Maine, but most people in the country were able to see at least a partial eclipse from where they live. So from Indianapolis to Caryville, Texas, eclipse chasers gathered to get the clearest view of the celestial event. The rare event also brought good business opportunities to many. One estimate says that the eclipse could generate $6 billion in economic activity as hotels and businesses along the path receive an influx of visitors. Now, according to data by short-term rental analytics platform AirDNA, rentals in the path of totality are booked solid. We actually talked to AirDNA today. Here's Jamie Lane, SVP of Analytics. Jamie, thank you very much for joining us today. The number one question, I think, is when you look at the path of totality of this solar eclipse, what do you see in terms of rentals along this path?
Yeah, one that we see is and essentially everything is booked along the path of totality. So last night, Sunday, April 7th, was the highest occupancy. So we saw overall 92% of listings along the path booked. Tonight, we see just about 85% of listings booked. But what's so interesting is it's across the entire path. So from the major cities to the small towns, really everyone's seeing the lift in bookings.
And I understand you created a map to display the rentals along this path. What does it look like?
Yeah, so what we did was we calculated the occupancy in every single city in the US for each day sort of leading up to, during, and after the eclipse. And then put a color on each city. So red being 100% occupied, dark blue being essentially vacant, 10% occupancy. And what you see is a clear red streak across the US where the path of totality is and where people have essentially booked out every single listing.
And to put that into a bigger picture here, if you compare what we're seeing this week to a year ago, how much of an increase are we looking at?
Yeah, in terms of total revenue, we're seeing about a 4x, so 4 times more revenue being earned. A big piece of that is just demand. So typically, in these type of areas, like April's not a strong booking time. It's in between spring break and summer travel season. So we're typically around 30% occupancy. As I said, now we're above 90%. Average daily rates, so the rates people are paying, we're seeing an increase of about 20% versus last year. So really strong increase in revenue that people are earning on this weekend.
All right, maybe just one more question. What are some strategies that you may have for renters and as well as people who is looking to rent for future types of events similar to this?
Yeah, the big thing is book really far in advance. So one of the reasons why we've seen only a 20% increase in rates that people are paying is most people booked almost a year out in advance for this event. And those that are having to book last minute are getting charged significantly higher rates. So if you looked last week at the average rate for units that were still available, it was going to be north of $600 to book a unit, where the average rate for someone that booked 6 months to a year ago was only $250. So if you're looking maybe at the next solar eclipse, the next big thing that's happening, just make sure you're getting a jump on everyone else.
Yeah, otherwise, not just that you'll pay a lot, but you might not even get a spot, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much, Jamie, Lane, AirDNA. Now, despite the rare event today, it has not eclipsed President Joe Biden's announcement of his new student loan forgiveness plan. So let's talk about it here. This comes after, as you remember, the Supreme Court struck down his previous plan last year. Now, Biden's new plan involves 5 major actions. Watch.
My administration will propose a new rule to cancel up to $20,000 in runaway interest for any borrower that owes more now than when they started paying the loan. It's a big difference. And for low and middle class families enrolled in my SAVE program, we'll cancel all of your interest, Second, we plan to cancel student debt for borrowers who still owe student loans, even though they started repaying them more than 2 decades ago.
Biden also wants to cancel debt for those who went to schools of questionable value and those facing financial hardship. The plan targets 30 million Americans in total. Biden says the debt is crushing them. Listen.
While a college degree still is a ticket to the middle class, that ticket's becoming much too expensive. The ability for working and middle class folks to repay their student loans has become so burdensome that a lot can't repay it for even decades.
But why is education so expensive, as you heard from Biden say just now? Heritage Foundation economist Joel Griffith says this is mainly because of federal loan subsidies. These subsidies enable more students to go to college, pushing up tuition costs. He says Biden's plan doesn't tackle this.
This is going to incentivize people to borrow even more for education because they're going to do so under the assumption that those loans might be forgiven. That'll result in more people being indebted, possibly more federal debt, and it's going to increase education costs even more.
The Biden administration says the plan may cost around $150 billion, but the Congressional Budget Office estimates that it may be way higher at $250 billion. Joel Griffith from the Heritage Foundation believes that while a small percentage of Americans could benefit from this, it's going to cost the overall economy.
We're running a federal deficit. Every dollar of increased federal spending, whether it's loan forgiveness or other types of programs, that means we're going to have to either borrow those funds or we're going to rely on our Federal Reserve to print the money to buy the debt to go ahead and distribute those funds. That results in higher inflation.
Though legal experts are saying that it's unlikely Biden's new plan will go through, and that's for the same reasons the Supreme Court struck down his previous one. Biden pledges he's going to never stop working to provide student loan relief and reiterated his desire to take to make community college free. The Biden administration made another announcement today, which is that Arizona is set to receive billions of dollars to essentially bring the United States to the highest tier of chips manufacturing in the world, along with Taiwan. High hopes here. The funding is tied to a sweeping 2022 law designed to revive U.S. semiconductor manufacturing. NTD's Sean Marshall has more.
The Biden administration pledged on Monday to provide up to $6 billion so that Taiwanese semiconductor giant TSMC can expand the facilities that it's already building in Arizona. It's part of the $280 billion CHIPS and Science Act. Stefan Zell is Vice President for Global Innovation Policy at the Information Technology and Innovation Foundation.
Gina Raimondo, the U.S. Commerce Secretary, has articulated the goal that America restore its share of global semiconductor manufacturing to 20% by the end of this decade, and to manufacture much more of the world's most sophisticated chips. Currently, over 90% of leading-edge process node sub-7 nanometer chips are coming off the island of Taiwan.
Gina Raimondo also said President Biden was tired of being at the end of the supply chain, and for the first time ever, we will be making at scale the most advanced semiconductor chips on the planet here in the United States of America. There are some hurdles before America is up to speed in manufacturing advanced electronics.
The announcement of funding from the CHIPS Program Office includes $50 million as well in workforce training. One of the challenges that TSMC has encountered thus far in Arizona and other manufacturers like Intel have encountered in Ohio is the reality of a lack of a skilled workforce in the United States. It's imperative that we graduate more students in these advanced electrical engineering fields, and that we support the broader technician and construction that you got to have to build out these fabs and operate them effectively going forward.
Taiwanese semiconductor manufacturing produces nearly all of the leading-edge microchips in the world and plans to eventually do so in the United States. Sean Marshall, NTD News.
We also had some scary moments today aboard a Southwest Airlines jet yesterday. A plane that left Denver's International Airport for Houston had to make an emergency landing back in Denver after an engine cover fell off during takeoff. Now, the cover struck part of the plane's wing, and FlightAware says that the plane returned safely to Denver about 35 minutes after it took off. No one was hurt, which is good. Passengers were put on a different jet and flown to Houston. The Federal Aviation Administration is investigating the incident, and the FAA is also looking into several other recent engine issues on Southwest's fleet of Boeing planes. Boeing has come under fire since a door plug panel tore off an Alaska Airlines jet mid-flight back in January. So with all these incidents, involving Boeing, we wanted to answer this question. Is it still safe to fly on the company's jets? We talked to veteran industry expert Jay Ratliff at iHeartMedia. Thanks for joining us here today, Jay. First thing I want your thoughts on, it seems like there's a lot of Boeing incidents recently. Any particular reason for that in your view?
Well, I think it's getting a lot more attention. I mean, ever since Boeing at the end of December sent an email out to airlines saying, keep an eye out for some missing bolts and nuts on the rudder control system of some of our Boeing 737 MAX aircraft. I mean, that's when everybody was like, whoa, wait, miss what? And then, of course, it was 2 weeks later that we had the door plug blow off that Alaskan Airlines flight. And ever since then, it's been nonstop Boeing. If any accident, near accident, anything takes place, the first question anybody's asking is, did this involve a Boeing aircraft? I mean, it's going viral and Boeing's name's everywhere, and sadly, not for the right reasons.
So are you saying that we're seeing more reports of these incidents simply for the fact that, as you mentioned, we're paying more attention to this company, and that's why we're getting this?
That's exactly the case. In the 33 years that I've been doing reports, a lot of times these types of issues really don't make the news. Now, obviously, if you've got something like the Southwest flight over the weekend, 3495, that had a part of the engine cowling come off, we'll find out what took place. The FAA will be all over it to find out. exactly what the issue here was, and we'll learn from it. But to throw this in the ever-growing Boeing bucket that continues to get bigger and bigger, I wouldn't do that. Now, look, I am very irritated at Boeing and have been for a number of years because I don't think they're really doing what they promised us they were going to do 5 years ago when they got rid of then the CEO, Dennis Muhlenberg, saying, look, we've not been doing things properly as we should have been for the last several years. We're going to turn the corner now in 2019, and we're going to be a better company. No more rushing airplanes through production. We're going to spend a lot more time on quality control. And you and I both know now that's obviously not happened. So I don't care if they get a new CEO or whatever they do, they've got to make some real changes. And I'm glad Boeing's getting the scrutiny that they need, because right now I don't believe they've been as forthcoming as they promised to be all those years ago.
These issues that have been raised, whatever they are in media reports, have they existed for a long time now? What do you think?
Well, you know, when we're talking about the cowling covers, if you want to get specific on the aircraft, we've had more issues with Airbus cowlings that have started to come off than we have with Boeing. In fact, they had to redesign the latching system on the European aircraft manufacturer Airbus because some of the flap issues that they were having on their cowling covers of their engines. So we've seen more Airbus than we have with Boeing. But right now, if it's a bird strike, if it's a tire falling off, it's a cowling issue, if it's an engine that has a mechanical situation taxiing for takeoff, first question is Boeing. In fact, we have passengers right now that have been contacting me saying, Jay, for the first time ever, I'm looking for an all Airbus itinerary. I'm not even going to fly Boeing if I can help it. And that's extreme, because in the years past, what we have seen has been people avoiding specific aircraft if there's an aircraft involved in an accident or a near accident. This is the first time I can ever recall passengers avoiding an entire aircraft manufacturer, as many are right now with Boeing.
Final question real quick. Tips and suggestions for travelers who are anxious.
Well, I mean, find out what your itinerary is supposed to be. You can, when you book an airline flight reservation, you can see what type of aircraft you are scheduled to fly on. But keep in mind that until you board the airplane, you really don't know, because a lot of these airlines, United, Delta, and others, fly both Boeing and Airbus. And you may be booked on a Boeing flight and you want to avoid that, so you change it to an Airbus. But if there's an aircraft swap where there's a problem, when you get to your hub, they may substitute your aircraft for an airplane you don't want to be on. So you really don't know what type of aircraft you're going to be on until you get to the airport and you're about to step on board. And airlines have been very forthcoming, saying, look, if you're not comfortable flying a specific type of airplane, we will, as best we can, accommodate you on another one of our flights.
All right. Thank you very much for your insight today, Jay. Pleasure speaking to you.
My pleasure.
All right, taking a quick break now. Elon Musk is entering a legal battle with Brazil's most influential Supreme Court justice. The entrepreneur says the country is becoming a dictatorship. Arian Pazdar is in Brazil with the details. U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen warned in China today that the U.S. will not accept American industries being decimated by Chinese imports. That's coming up after the break.
Does shopping for bladder control products have you feeling like you need someone to be on the lookout for you? Now you have your privacy back. We're HDIS, and we home deliver bladder control products directly to you. We're always on the lookout for you. You get free shipping in plain, unmarked boxes. So your private matters stay private. We understand how you feel. For over 35 years, we've delivered bladder control products to millions of Americans, just like you. You don't have to worry about incontinence any longer. Call now for your free product sample pack and over $45 in money-saving coupons. At HDIS, we're always in stock. We carry all brands in hundreds of styles and sizes. You'll be sure to get what you need, guaranteed.
For your free sample pack with your free catalog and $45 in money-saving coupons and free product samples, call 800-701-6159. That's 800-701-6159.
Have you ever helped a fellow veteran?
Of course.
Yes. Have you ever asked for help yourself?
It's always tough, right? I always feel like I can solve my own problems, but eventually, you just can't deal with it on your own.
And you start to question, maybe people would be better off without me.
And you realize that you're not alone. Once you take that first step, there's so much support.
Is deep sea fish oil really healthy? Due to pollution in the oceans, most fish contain heavy metal elements and radioactive substances. That's why it's so important to choose a pure source of omega-3. Puritang green vegetable omega-3 is made from purslane and perilla seeds, which are rich in nutrients and minerals, especially vitamins A, D, E, calcium, and iron. With natural processing and no harmful chemical additives, it has more than 90% concentration of omegas 3, 6, 7, and 9. It effectively improves brain power and is beneficial to the heart's health. Puritang omega-3 does not smell of fish and contains no pollutants, so both adults and children can safely and easily consume it over a long period of time. Puritang green vegetable omega-3, greener, healthier, and more effective. Visit puritang.com to learn more.
The 2024 NTD 9th International Chinese Vocal Competition is scheduled to take place at Merkin Hall, Kaufman Music Center in New York from September 18th to 21st. The competition specially invites vocalists from the world-famous Shen Yun Performing Arts to serve as judges. The prestigious Gold Award is $10,000. Chinese vocal artists aged 18 to 50 are welcome to register.
Okay, let's go through some quick headlines here. Jury selection began today in a case connected to Tesla's autopilot feature. The family of Walter Huang filed the wrongful death suit against Tesla after his Model X crashed in 2018 while autopilot was engaged. And US Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen warned China on Monday that Washington will not accept new industries being decimated by Chinese imports as she wrapped up 4 days of meetings in the country. Here's a report.
US Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen has wrapped up a visit to China marked by a strong message for her hosts. She says Washington won't let cheap imports from the country kill jobs in American industry. Since arriving last week, she's pressed US arguments that Chinese industry is producing too much, fueled by government support and putting a strain on global markets. Yellen returned to the issue at a concluding news conference on Monday in Beijing.
And when the global market is flooded by artificially cheap Chinese products, the viability of American and other foreign firms is put into question. And we've seen this story before. Over a decade ago, massive PRC government support led to below-cost Chinese steel that flooded the global market and decimated industries across the world and in the United States.
Yellen says US President Joe Biden is determined to avoid a repeat of the so-called China shock of the early 2000s. That saw a flood of cheap Chinese imports destroy some 2 million American manufacturing jobs. Yellen identified electric vehicles, batteries and solar panels as among areas of concern. However, on Monday she made no move to threaten new sanctions over the issue.
Asset manager Blackstone said today it's going to buy Air Communities for $10 billion in cash. Air Communities owns apartments in both coasts. Blackstone has been betting on a revival of the rental market. Former President Trump's legal team filed a notice of appeal in his Manhattan criminal case. A source says the filing relates to the gag order that has been imposed on Trump. The judge planned to hear arguments in the case Monday afternoon. And jury selection began today in a case connected to Tesla's autopilot feature. The family of Walter Huang filed a wrongful death suit against Tesla after his Model X crashed in 2018 while autopilot was engaged. And more pressure is being put on China's property market, it seems like. Shanghai-based property giant Shimao Group said it has received a liquidation petition. This is a filing that showed that the state-owned China Construction Bank filed the winding up petition. It claims Shimao has filed to repay over $200 million in debt. Shumao missed its first interest and principal payment on a $1 billion bond back in July 2022. The company says it will vigorously oppose the petition, and it plans to continue working toward restructuring and maximizing value for stakeholders. The court's website shows Shumao's first court date is on June 26th. And Elon Musk is entering legal battle with Brazil's most influential Supreme Court justice. The High Court is now investigating Musk for alleged obstruction of justice. That's for defying court's orders to censor certain accounts. NTD's Arian Pasdar is in Brazil with the details.
Brazil's Supreme Court wants X, formerly known as Twitter, to suspend certain popular accounts. Now, Elon Musk says that the court doesn't allow him to publish the names of the accounts that are supposed to be suspended. And he says that he doesn't actually know why they should be suspended. All we do know is that this is part of the court's investigation into former President Jair Bolsonaro. Now, because of these aggressive demands, Elon Musk now says that Brazil is slowly becoming a dictatorship. I asked the people here in Brazil to see if they share the same concerns. O Brasil está virando uma ditadura.
I totally agree with Elon Musk. This is how Venezuela started. We know that it's dangerous to have communists in the government. Venezuelans are fleeing to Brazil. Where can we go to? Argentina? The ocean? There's nowhere to go. I don't agree with Elon Musk, not at all. Brazil is a full democracy and all rights are being guaranteed.
Brazil's Supreme Court has been investigating alleged misinformation used to overturn the 2021 presidential election. They argue accounts spreading it should be banned. Arian Pasdar, NTD News.
And thank you very much for watching. That's all the stories we have for you today. And don't forget, business matters. Goodbye.